Welcome into week 12 of the Bobcast here. I'm sitting down with men's lacrosse head coach Steve Gartelman. Coach, couple of back-to-back 21 to 4 wins, which is kind of a nice fact in itself, and playing back-to-back days. What was it like for you guys to, A, be back home for the first time in almost a month now, and then B, to play on those back-to-back days?
There's really nothing better than being at Bobcat Stadium, giving ourselves a chance to defend the mountain, and don't need to travel. The old familiar, waking up in your bed, the usual breakfast routine. There's nothing better. So it's so nice to be back home. The trips, have been working out, but it's been tough games against tough teams and tough travel. So it's been nice for us to get this chance to come back and just play in front of our folks and our fans and here at Bobcat Stadium. And I think the guys, answered the bell when they do that. Is they were bummed to lose the Wednesday game. It's part of the season that we had to, kind of go through the Wednesday adjustments with the COVID environment. We were able, fortunately, put that into our Sunday, and putting them back-to-back is never easy. So the guys were on board to do that, and they knew that it's a lot of mileage this weekend. We had to be efficient. We had to be a team. We had to make sure we were getting everybody, the runs that they deserve, and making sure that we're being smart with how we play to go out there and go at it. So it felt so good to be back, but also felt so good to see our guys playing to that caliber, so we can see everybody out there. Everyone got a chance because they all work so hard. They all deserve it. It just doesn't happen in every game. So this weekend was outstanding, in my opinion.
And you talked about playing to the caliber, and you mentioned those tough games that you had the past couple weeks. And I know last week you talked with Matt Ambrose about you guys have had some slow starts that really kind of cost you in the end. Not in terms of the results, but you guys had to really fight back in a couple of those games. And you come out against Malloy, and you're up 4-0 within 3 minutes. So obviously the guys listened to something that you said at some point. How important was it for you to get finally that good, quick start where you can get that early lead and you don't have to worry as much about having to come back later in the game?
Yeah, it's how we want to go about every day, so we needed to find that, because if we keep playing with fire like that against, anybody, there's going to be some time where we just go too deep of a hole and we can't get ourselves out, or there's just not enough time in the game. Whatever might happen, the ball bounces one different way, and it's a one-goal game to the other side instead of our side. So we're playing with fire in a few of these games where we had a one-goal game, a two-goal game, and some of these where we're just not starting off right. So giving ourselves a chance to make sure that we're competitive in the fourth quarter by being competitive in the first quarter, and I think the guys understood that. No matter, how we, go through the week and everything, it's a mindset they know. Start hot, stay hot, finish hot, but it's not easy to do. So the guys really were able to buy into that, understand that. You see it on film, in those first couple of games that we weren't so hot. It's a much different tempo in those first, second, maybe even a little of the third quarter. Then you can see an awakening in some of these fourth quarters where it's like, oh my gosh, that's what we're capable of. So harnessing that, bottling that a little bit, knowing like we have to find a way to warm ourselves up. We have to find a way to hit that stride a little bit earlier, and making sure that we're not going uphill in every single game. There's going to be plenty of times that we play teams, that control the tempo of the game, and we're not going to have as many opportunities. So really it's just a matter of making sure that we set a standard for ourselves about where we expect to be, and it's not who we're playing and what's this, what's that. It's how do we want to attack the day, and how do we want to respect the game of lacrosse and our opponent by putting our best foot forward in every moment and every opportunity. And that's what the theme has been, and that's what the guys have been listening to and really absorbing. And like you said, to go out there in two games and go bang, bang, bang for 2-3 quarters in the beginning for both of those games and start off really hot was rewarding, for me as a coach to see, like, we can do it. The guys are listening, and it felt right again. It was one of those things where we felt like we had the chemistry, the connection. It was good vibes, so to say. Good vibes on the weekend.
Always want good vibes on the weekend. And so kind of in the reverse of that then, against AB, you guys got the first couple of possessions, and their goalkeeper made a couple of really nice saves on your first 4 possessions. And then they go down and they kind of shock everyone in the stadium, and they go down and score right off a counterattack. Was that sort of a wake-up call that your guys needed? Like, hey, we can't take this team, too lightly, and they have dangerous players. And then you guys kind of went and routed off goals of your own. It was Jason Clinton really that got the fire lit. But was that sort of needed for your guys to wake up that day?
Yeah, potentially. I don't think it was something where we hit, the skids, we hit the brakes, and we're like, whoa, what's going on? It was definitely something where, when we talk about preparation, no matter what records are, no matter what scores we're looking at, these guys, everybody likes to, look at all the news clippings. It's a lot of fun, but that creates a little bit of a predetermination sometimes. So, yeah, we probably needed that a little bit, but it was something where we know, there's shutouts very, very rarely in lacrosse. It's a game of runs, so they hit one. Okay, good job for you guys. The goalie started off really, really hot, and I thought our offense played great to get the shots we wanted. The goalie made some saves, and that's just a matter of lacrosse. They got to compete as well. So we're really appreciative of those guys. Continue to play the way they needed to, and not Jason Clinton made a few shots early. The guy made a nice save on. Rupert had a couple shots. The guy made a nice saves on, and they continue to do those things that got them those shots. Put the shots in good spots. We had a scout we wanted to shoot. Goalie made a few saves based on where we want to shoot. He made a save that we didn't think he'd get to. As the game went, we started to see a few of those start to go. It's not always what happens in that moment, but it was a great awakening. But it was something where we kind of knew, keep hitting those spots, keep doing what you need to do on offense and defense, and so to say, if we keep hitting the rock, we'll break the rock. They made some plays, but it's not something we felt was sustainable based on our scout, because we felt really good about what we were attacking. The defense, there was a transition run. They got a good look off a transition run with some shoddy subs on my side in the sub box, so I'll take that one in the first game, or the first goal of the game. But I can't say enough about our defense, the way that they, in a short time frame, a very short time frame, we gave them a scout. We said, get yourselves, comfortable with it. And they put together, a 4-goal performance where everybody got to contribute and really shut down a team that, like you said, they came out of a cannon. They were flying in the first few minutes, making saves, grounders, and runs. So needed probably, but it was something that definitely didn't surprise us. It was a very calm environment of like, good for you. We knew that was coming here or there. Good on you. Let's go ahead and get ours now. And the guys just like, let's go make a play ourselves. So I definitely think it helped. But there was definitely no concern on our sideline, because the guys knew what they were capable of. And coming off the game from Saturday, we started to visualize what that standard is and how we can attack for a quarter. So I think it was something where everybody was eager to see what's going to happen next and eager for that next whistle, because they definitely came shot out of a cannon and to try to take advantage of our short time frame. So tip of the cap to Allison Byrnes for coming out and banging bodies and making some plays, and really confident, claps for our guys, tip of the cap for our guys who were able to just stay Teflon, stay calm, and go out and make some more plays as the game went.
Yeah, and certainly a team that expected to go in. Some of the guys may have taken it lightly, considering you won 35-4 last year, and this year AB certainly at least more locked in defensively and in keeping you guys, I don't want to say, holding you guys to 21 goals, but certainly making it more competitive than certainly the final score would show. Two guys that you already mentioned that I wanted to bring up, and Paul Rupert and Jason Clinton, who have started to kind of really control the offense now, with Paul's got 15 goals now, Jason hitting double digits with 10 goals. Jason especially over the weekend scored 7 goals. It was 3 on Saturday, 4 on Sunday. He's really stepped up his goal scoring. He had a goal in each of the games previously, but this weekend really kind of came out on fire and really looked like he had his shot going and had a pretty good combination between him and Paul. How important is it for those two to be firing on all cylinders? Or Paul, he's more of a guy where you kind of know what you're going to get almost every single game. He's so consistent. And Jason really stepping up and catching fire now. Is that something that you expect from him going forward the rest of the season?
Yeah, most certainly. Jason's been a huge part of our offense as long as I've been here for the past 2-3 years. Paul, as you said, we know he's a baller. We know he's a gamer and a goal scorer. And the thing with Jason, he's getting healthy. He's coming back off of some injuries from the fall. He's, a little nagging this, a little nagging that. The fall was a significant injury, and with that, he's kind of got a little the hip tweak here, hit that there. So he's in the ice bath a good bit. He's working with our trainers and Cassie a lot, which we appreciate. So seeing him get healthy is what's seeing him have more production. Outstanding lacrosse player, outstanding lacrosse mind, great teammate, never had a problem with coming off the bench, running out of the midfield. But as he's healthy, he's a matchup nightmare. He's so strong, so dynamic, so big, and his stick skills are incredible. He shoots the lights out. And to have a lefty with that kind of tough matchup, the size, the strength, the back him down, beat him up, kind of like the Shaq post player on that side. And then to have Paul Rupert, who is lightning quick, change of direction, bounce burst, and the old water bug. It's really good to have that, and it's really tough for defense to have matchups. And working with other guys in those attack groups, it's those guys that we think are really heating up right now. But we've got 6-7 guys in the attack group that we can put out there and play, and are all doing outstanding. Bubba Love got his first start over the weekend, second start with Allison Broadus. He played great. He's on our man-up squad. Gavin Chattal is the most active guy on the squad. He runs and moves, and he's got the ground ball machine where he always gets those second chances for us. Austin Sipes and Mike Sipes are a 1-2 brother combo. They're running together in the past few days, and they're outstanding. They got a lefty-righty connection, so we've got those couple of guys. Joey Boros, who we put in the midfield a little bit recently, who's looking great up there, but can play attack. Lefty who's dynamic and also a bruiser like Jay. So that's just our attack with Nick Nordhausen, who got a goal last night, Dylan Griffiths, who I think has 4 on the weekend, and Austin Lynn got 1 and a couple assists. So to see all those guys out there producing, run around, and really not seeing a fall off as we go makes me really proud to see how deep we are and how much these guys are listening and taking advantage of the practice reps. 'Cause some of these guys aren't getting a ton of game reps, but they're getting advantage of their practice reps. So when their game reps come, they're out there and making plays. So love seeing Jason warm up and get healthy. It's so good for him to be healthy. Paul is just continuing to do what he does. And all those other guys are really finding their way in. And everyone in that group, Paul and Jay included, are completely okay with, let's run those guys a little bit. I'll take a breather. I'll go to the midfield, and just completely selfless to the sense of whatever the team needs, let's make it happen. So we have a lot of talent that we're trying to find ways to play in the right ways. And if those guys can keep being selfless, we're going to have a very successful season with how deep those guys are. And that's just our attack. And then we have all these middies and all these defensemen, all these goalies and face-off guys. It's a good problem for me to have. I'm very happy with how our guys are developing and coming together in this year.
Absolutely. You can never have too many good players on one team. And you took the question right off my page. I was just about to talk about all the guys that you mentioned, and I wanted to throw in Dom Saracen and Eric Augustin as well, who really got their first significant action over the weekend. And wanted to talk a little bit about, obviously, the face-off, where you guys really just dominated the entire weekend. Sam Natvig, who we know certainly from his time here, 28 of 30 on his face-offs over the weekend, and I think we looked it up last night. It was 93 or 94% of his percentage. And then you bring in Cade Price off the bench, who obviously did well, and then you even threw in excuse me,
Evan Deere.
Evan Deere, thank you very much.
No problem.
And he won 4-4 on us yesterday. So your guys in faceoffs, and you had a couple of down weeks against those better teams where you weren't necessarily winning the majority of them. And so how important for them, just maybe even just confidence-wise, to get into the circle and start getting those big wins in there?
Yeah, I think this weekend was exactly what we needed right there because, like you said, it's been a tough go. We've ran into some really tough matchups. You know, the Chestnut Hill kid was outstanding. The Lake Erie kid was really, really good. The Walsh kid is really, really good. So the first 3 games, we've had tough matchups there where our guys had to come out and really, really compete for everything they've earned. And they did their part there. They did great, and we come out on top in those games. They did exactly what they needed to do in those tough matchups to keep us competitive and have a chance to win those games. Then to come here and see them dominate the game is great. Like you said, part of that position is confidence to know, like, all right, the whistle blows, I know what I'm doing, and just trusting themselves to make their moves, make their exits, scoop ground balls and runs and make plays. So to see Sammy doing that, where he's picking up GBs, hitting point guys, scoring goals, just getting that confidence of trusting himself to make lacrosse plays as well as, win the ball, win the clamp. Same with Cade and Evan. Great to see them confident and making plays. But I think what it also does is it gives them rhythm and routine. That's a position that's very muscle memory, very quick twitch, very instinctual, where you don't get to kind of feel things out. It's got to bang, bang, get up and go. You've either won or lost. So to have them kind of get in routine and rhythm, practice reps, we get them a ton of work at practice, but it's not the same as that live action against a different person. So to see them come out and get some rhythm, routine, where they kind of trust their whistle, they trust their exits, they trust their ground balls, they trust their lacrosse work and their stick work, that's going to take us really far. In addition to that, the confidence you were talking about, to know how good they are, because to see tough matchups, sometimes it can rock you a little bit like, man, what am I doing? Well, that kid was really, really good. So sometimes that happens. But they've got confidence in themselves. Even through those tough matchups, they believe in themselves. But to have this, I guess, clarification of what they believe in themselves, and then the rhythm, I think that rhythm of just getting more reps. As the season goes, face-off guys generally tend to get a little more better with their consistency stuff. So I think that's all playing a factor. And 2 games in one weekend is great for them to maybe get a little sore, because that's a tough position. But I would keep saying that rhythm of just more whistles, more reps, more competition. So I hope to see that translate into our next one on Friday, because that's going to be a fun one.
And certainly to someone that may not know a ton about men's or women's lacrosse, and that draw control for the women's and the face-off for you guys, that's arguably one of the most important positions there on the field because of momentum swings, and it's all about momentum in any sport and winning those face-offs. I always think back to Denver a couple of years ago. They had Trevor Baptiste, who went number 1 overall in the PLL, and he was just a monster on his face-offs, and getting like 65% in Division I is unheard of.
For sure.
Almost.
It could be a game changer.
Absolutely. And so big game coming up on Friday against number 5 ranked Seton Hill. You guys are at home, and then a couple of weeks later, you're going to travel to Seton Hill. So is this something where, is it sort of like a level for you guys where, even without looking at the result, you can tell your guys, like, hey, this is like the top of Division II. This is where we want to be. Regardless of what the outcome is, look at what they do and how they build a successful program, and this is what you guys can strive to be.
Sure. I think that conversation's been had a few times now when we kind of look towards where we're going to be playing, in the future when we have these like summer meetings, or not summer meetings, like end of the season meetings before the summer, early in the fall. We kind of talk about where we want to be, what we want to do. So those are all conversations we've had. It's going to be more of a where are we? So it's very much in that conversation, but a self-realization of how far have we come? Where are we at? And this is what we want. We want to play all the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We want to play those teams because that's where we, think we are working to ourselves towards. So we need that for, that level, the bar, kind of see where the bar is for a top 5 team, for a top 10 team, for a top 15 team. So it'll be good for us to kind of, as you said, see what it is for an established Division II really good program to go out there and compete, which I think you're going to see us go out there and really bring the noise to them. Results aside, I think we're going to really have a good competitive showing. That's all we ask for, is to be competitive, because we think we've made great strides to be one of these top 10, 20, 15 teams in Division II. So hopefully this is kind of like we saw at the face-off, guys, a little realization of our confidence, at the very least to be competitive. But you come out and win one of these games or lose one of these games, it tells you a lot. Definitely tells you a lot. But if we could have a schedule of 1 through 20 in every game, that's what we want, because we want to try and play the most competitive games possible. We like to get out there. But we do also appreciate our conference, agreement with the ECC and the GMAC to play local teams, strong teams, and really get a diverse look at everything. But these are the ones that we really, really, we want these, because like you said, we want to be in this top 20, top 10 ranks, and it'll be a testament of how far we've come. I think we'll see that we're pretty close.
And absolutely, and you saw a little bit of that back when you were in Division III. You're playing against some of the top teams of the conference in Salisbury and York and CNU. So they kind of got that bar, and they were competitive down in that. And arguably the hardest conference for men's lacrosse in the whole country at Division III. And so now coming up Division II, obviously, some still competitive teams. So we wish you the best of luck. Obviously, I'll be there cheering you guys on from the press box. You might not be able to hear me, but I'll still be there along with the rest of the athletic communications. And thank you for coming on today and coming to talk to us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Back here on the Bobcast this week, and field hockey was back in action over the weekend. A 2-1 loss on Sunday against Mercyhurst. That was a road game. Coach, a team that you beat last year in a pretty close game, and this year it was the same, where this year you took the lead and then Mercyhurst kind of came back, and from what I understand was a pretty frustrating loss for you guys, but certainly one where you played well the whole game and just the result kind of didn't go your way. But what did you see from your girls specifically that, this is the type of game where they can, even with a loss, the way they perform, they can get confidence going forward that we can compete in Division II with some of these teams?
Yeah, I mean, our team did a great job playing under, some extenuating circumstances, and they really, played a high-level field hockey. Our offense was really clicking and working the ball down the field. We just couldn't really get any more goals to drop, but they did a great job moving that ball down the field, which was, something we really were struggling with against a great St. Mary's team. So to be able to see them really, over the past 2 weeks at practices, the mentality has shifted, and that was a big focus of ours, and it was going great in practices, and it went great yesterday during the game. So it's just something that we have to continue building off of, because we played a great field hockey game yesterday, just didn't really go our way.
And that first goal coming off of a penalty corner, it was Taylor Hackett, and she sent it into Gabby Rahuba. And we've talked about Gabby previously, who's been a really consistent performer for this program for really her entire career here. And you guys had a lot of those chances where you said you just couldn't find the ball into the back of the net off the penalty corners. You outshot Mercyhurst 13-9 and certainly had quite a number of penalty corners. Is that something, and we talked about how young this team is, where you have a lot of first-year players that are very talented but just don't have as much experience as someone like Rahuba or Taylor Hackett or some of the other seniors. Is that something that you can work on in practice and setting up those corner plays and being able to put them into game situations? Or is it something where they just kind of need the confidence like, hey, we can score in this division, we just have to do it to get that confidence?
Yeah, I mean, the corner play that I called, I knew how hard Gabby was working, and I know what type of competitor she is. So I called the play for Gabby to shoot because she's shoot or shoot. She's a great competitor, great player, and I just had all the confidence in the world that she was going to score that goal, and she did. And I'm glad that she's able to get on the board in her senior year, and I hope many more for her fall for this last year, because she has been just a fantastic goal scorer for our program. And so yeah, it was great to see her get on the board. And yeah, I think it's nice for the freshmen. Of course, they're a talented group, but it's nice to kind of see when the seniors kind of competitive mentality comes out, and they see what it takes to really get the ball in the goal and everything. So yeah, it was great for me to be able to see Gabby step up in that moment, score a goal, and hopefully, like I said, we just continue this momentum into our next games coming up.
And for your team, you said that you were moving the ball up the field very well, which you said you couldn't do as well against St. Mary's. Certainly in the second game, where in the first half of the first game against St. Mary's, you played fairly well in that one. Is that something as well that the players, again, it's something of a confidence thing of just knowing they can do it? You said in the St. Mary's, I think in the second game, where they just didn't seem like they had belief in themselves that they could do it. They just couldn't get out of that funk. And now coming into this game, they know that they can, transition the ball forward now.
Yeah, I think it was just a complete mentality shift after our loss against St. Mary's. Is we just really took accountability for things that we needed to work on, and the girls did a great job of fixing those things in practices. They really communicated with each other on and off the field. So if we didn't connect on passing up the field in practice, we really broke down and talked about it afterwards, and girls were holding themselves accountable to, I don't have to be the one that facilitate those conversations. They're the ones that are having those conversations during and after the play, and that's how we get better, and that's how we did get better this week, these past 2 weeks. So it's been really great to see, and we just got to continue to hold ourselves accountable and continue to hold ourselves to that high standard, and we're gonna keep getting better and better, because the team that went out there to play yesterday was a fantastic team, and it's starting to come together. So we're just going to continue to roll with that.
And so you get a week off to prepare before you travel all the way out across the state, almost entirely out to Salisbury, who one of the top Division III teams, and certainly one that from your experience in the CAC. They made the national tournament their last 2 years that they played, and I believe made it all the way to the national semifinals in the last season they played. So certainly a top team, and sort of something of, I talked with Steve Gartelman earlier about his team playing the number 5 team on Friday, and you guys playing against this Salisbury team where you have so many young players that is it sort of like a bar that's set for them of like, hey, this is a program that's been elite for a number of years. This is where you guys can be if you put the work in and listen to kind of what we want to do as a program.
Yeah, definitely. I think Salisbury is a fantastic program. They've been a fantastic program for years. Dawn Chamberlain is an amazing coach. So we're excited about the opportunity to get to play them again. Obviously, old conference foes. So, our team has come leaps and bounds from where we were in 2018, the last time we played Salisbury. So we're really excited about being able to play them and being able to see how we stack up against them now. It's a great opportunity for us to play against just a fantastic program, and I think the girls are excited to be able to kind of go hopefully get a win, and hopefully just show what we're made of this year.
Absolutely. And so we wish you certainly the best of luck in that game as well as for the rest of their games. And certainly also as well every week, just glad that you guys have been able to play, being in a bit of a tough position, being an independent in Division II right now without a conference, and being able to schedule some of these other teams to be able to play. And thank you for taking time out of your morning here to come and talk to us on the Bobcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Back on the Bobcast this week, and it'll be my first time on the Bobcast talking with acrobatics and tumbling head coach Katie Nunley. Coach, you're coming off of a break from your team due to a pandemic issues, and you're back against Glenville State, and certainly a strong performance from you guys. You won 4 of the 5 events that you competed in, and what was it like to be back onto the mat after having a couple of those meets canceled and rescheduled against a pretty good team in Glenville State, who in 2019 made it all the way to the MEC championship?
It felt like a lifetime, to be quite honest. I know the girls were excited to get back out on the mat. It was a lot of challenges that we had faced the week prior to. We had to make a lot of adjustments, and they adapted really well, and a lot of them stepped up, and they did what we asked them to do. So I was beyond proud of them. I think this meet really opened up their eyes at how well they can hang with those established programs. Being a new team, like, you can use that as your excuse, or you can use that and drive your performance and use that as motivation to not just say, oh, they're a new year team, like, they're not going to, be that great, not that good. No, we can be really great. We have a lot of talent on the team, and I think it's the girls finally, like, understanding and realizing what their true potential is, and just having that confidence and believing in themselves and just making it happen out on the mat.
And certainly something where you're coming in as this new program, and where about 95% of your team is all first-year athletes, and they're coming into collegiate sports for the first time, where you have a team like Glenville State where they've been established for a number of years now, and certainly something in your assistant, Bree D'Angelo, knows quite well from her time there. Was that something that she kind of, talk about Bree for a second, and that she kind of brings in, where she's been in a successful program for that number of years, and she can bring that mentality into this program along with yourself, where the two of you have that experience of looking at these other teams, and this past weekend where Bree can go, hey, I was part of this team, and you guys just competed with them for 5 events.
Yeah, definitely. She is always that motivator, and she's like, guys, you can take them. Like, we as coaches, we look at scores, we watch the meets, and we see how they perform, and we go back and we're like, guys, yeah, they have this start value, but they made a lot of mistakes. Like, as long as we do our job and we keep it clean, like, we can outbeat them. And that was kind of our motivation going into this meet. Like, we knew, obviously, not having the team event, we weren't going to win it all, but we told the girls, this is our time to take more than just heats. This is our time to take events. And they provided that, and we did. We overcame a lot of things. Granted, we weren't perfect, but they did well. And with the changes and the pressure that was on them, they kept their heads high, and they believed in themselves, and they trusted their teammates, and they did great. And Bree's just funny, because she's like, as much as she wants to be, the supportive alumni, she's like, guys, I'm really Frostburg. Like, I love you guys, but, Glenville's alumni, whatever. But, we're Bobcats through and through now. So I love her. I love her energy that she brings to practice, and just the, the positivity that she brings and gives to the girls. And we have to tell them, like, you can do this. Like, we won't put you in something that we don't think you could do. And so we're always reassuring them that they have the potential. They just have to believe themselves.
Absolutely. And so we'll start off in the Pyramid Heat, where in the Heat 1 you come out with a huge performance. You got a 9.5 in that heat. And I see you smiling already. You're so excited to talk about this one. But in that heat, you're coming out, your first couple events, the compulsory Obviously, Glenville took, and then you guys narrowly won that acro. And so this is kind of a gauge meter of how the meet can go for you guys. And you come out and just, pull out a 9.5 out of your hats. So what was it like to see your team in that pyramid just pro out? You said you weren't perfect, but a 9.5, I mean, that's almost as perfect as you can get in the sport.
It was, we kind of did that pyramid on a whim. We have our top for that pyramid, Abby Baker, and she has been working the hand in hands. Our first meet that we did it at a shoulder level, and so we started working the extended hand in hands with her, and we were like, this is where you find your sweet spot. Like, this is more what you're comfortable with. So we decided to give it a go, and we were scoring it out, trying to figure out different things, and we were able to score it out to a 10, which is amazing for a first year program, getting up to that really high difficulty. And, we had some really great ones in practice, and we had some really bad ones. And warming up, we were like, okay. I was like, you just need to fight. Fight to stay up there. You and your mid need to fight to stay up there and just save it. And they fought. They did really, really well. That was the cleanest, probably the best that I had seen it done before actually going out and doing it. Warm-ups were, always a little chaotic and a little shaky. You get some mistakes here and there, but they really put it together when they stepped out on the mat. So.
And I suppose that's the best time to do it. When you start your competition and you're going to get scored, you may as well pull your best one out.
Right.
And certainly, and just a side note here for people that may not know this sport, certainly it's a new sport.
Mm-hmm.
that certainly when me and Matt were given our walkthrough, we were like, what is all of this? And so finally getting to see it, we understand that these starting values are set by your own team.
Yes.
By the head coaches, and you have to basically try and get the highest score that you can. So when we saw the last time you were out against Gannon had almost all 10s as their starting values, where they have a full roster, they're well established. You sang their praises of how well of a team that they're run. And so that's why for a first year program, having high start values isn't going to, be necessarily what you can strive for. A lot of yours were in the high 8s or the low 9s, where you can only get to a certain level. As opposed to a 10. So I just want to make that a side note
definitely.
of how impressive it is that you can get a 9.5 out of a 10 on the pyramid. So we'll move into the tosses now. And, a couple of really nice performances that were highlighted were the 8.7 that you got in Heat 1 and then the 8.85 in Heat 3, which, if I'm not mistaken, is your highest that you've scored in a toss event this year so far. So, in that first heat, with Sydney Green, Neva Marie Rose, Alexis Palmieri, Lakin Spar, Maya Morant, and Desiree Brady. And then Heat 3, Sydney Green, Palmieri, Marie Rose, Spar, Morant, and Brady once again. What was it from those two heats and from those athletes that made them so successful in that event?
So Heat 1, we'll talk about that. That is our back salto toss that we have to do, and that Sydney in her toss group, that's where they shine. Like, her skills is back saltos for that. She does a really good set for her back tuck toss. And that's where the judges will get really technical. If they don't see your face while you're setting, they're going to take points off because you'll get lack of extension. And also, like, the shootout, which is where you're rotating and then there's a point in time where your body is literally up and down and then you kind of swoop through and get caught. And then they really judge on how the toss is caught as well. Me personally, I nitpicked and I was like, that was a really low catch, guys, and I was like, we're probably going to get some points off of that, but everything else was really good. And she thrives in that event, and I knew that was probably our best bet to compete that, and she did really great. Obviously, it scored well. We competed that for duo 2 with Abby as well, and then Heat 3, I think you were looking at the wrong part, but Heat 3 was actually our Arabian toss with Abby Baker, Hannah, Kendra, Kaitlin, and Virginia, I think, is who.
I have it here, and I was confused because there's a giant gray bar that's here splitting up Heat 2, and I'm like, oh, that's Heat 3, and then I look right below, oh, there's a Heat 3 there. And
it's okay.
So.
Trust me, reading that's confusing, so kudos to you for keeping it in check. So Abby, we started working her Arabian full, and we worked that after our first meet. And Bree this is her department is tosses. She did great whenever she flew in them in Glenville. So this is where she really shines. And she was like, I think Abby would be really good at an Arabian toss. I'm like, all right, let's try it. So we got her in the belt, practiced it. Beautiful. Abby and Sydney both have really beautiful lines, and that's what the judges look for as well. So she executed the skill well, because again, there's a point in time after you jump half turn, the judges need to see your face before completing your twist, and she did that, and so that's why we got scored well. They had a really good catch, and that toss group and our first heat toss group, we had to switch some of the bases around, so they did really well just jumping in, making it work. Tosses can be tricky. You usually find your partner that you're really comfortable with and what makes it go really high. So the fact that they were able to just interchange shows their versatility and shows their perseverance of wanting to make things work. So they did really well with that.
And is that something, and as a side note here once again, is coming in as a first-year program where you have a lot of these athletes that obviously you know is you've recruited them, but when they get here is that, you kind of mix and match of like, hey, I want to try this, or I think this person would be really good at this. Is that, something that as they go through the years here at Frostburg, as the program builds, that you could be, more sure of who's going to be in what event, as opposed to this year where it's really a trial year in a way?
Yeah, definitely. I'll use Alexis for an example. I was like recruiting her. Bree and I were both like, she'll be a top, like she'll be great topping. And we've come to find that her specialty is basing and mid-leveling. That's where she shines. She could by all means top, but I think we just need to work that a little bit more. And that's okay, because as you go through, you want to be able to say that you've done all positions. That's just going to benefit you at the end of the day as an athlete, get you in more rounds, get you more exposure, nominate you for more things through the MEC and the NCATA as well. So all those things play a factor, but as we get through, I'll be like, okay, these are my bases for this. These are my tops for this specifically. And freshmen coming in, they'll kind of be just, teetering the water, seeing what, is most comfortable, where they shine best in a sense, and then from there, as they get more comfortable, then that spot will just be more solidified for them, and then we'll get them back out of their comfort zones and try other things.
Absolutely, and certainly a well-rounded, and certainly the sport, a term that is kind of used quite a bit, is being well-rounded and having experience in everything. And certainly as these athletes go through the years, they can have the experience to where when you bring in new athletes, they can be maybe tutoring you guys as coaches and say, hey, I think, so-and-so could do this, and certainly only better for the program.
Yes.
So wrapping up this meet in that the tumbling event, which you could argue could have been your best event, in that every heat that went got at least an 8.4, was the lowest score, which is pretty amazing considering all things. And then you actually won this event by over 4 points over Glenville. And again, you have this smile on your face. It's infectious. But, I saw in your first meet against Gannon where, you were so proud of the athletes when they did that first time around. And then this round, they kind of stepped themselves up and they made it even better. So what was the progress that they made where, I don't want to say that you were surprised by your athletes in the first event or in the first meet, but certainly one where, you came out better than what you expected, and this meet, one-upping that.
Yeah, so I say first meet, I was just not surprised or anything by that means. I was just proud of how well they kept their nerves, because tumbling, solos, and even just tumbling in general, your nerves can get the best of you. You can get power that you didn't know you had, and things can get out of control, and landings can be all weird and funky. So I was very proud of how well they kept those nerves in and used them to their advantage. And then this week, they really wanted to just beat Glenville in a sense. They knew what we had to work because the heat summaries that we got, I went through and talked with some of those girls, and I was like, hey, this is what they got you on, so this is what we need to work towards. And from our first meet to this meet, Kaitlin, she did a much more fluid aerial pass, and it was like a brand new athlete when she stepped out on the mat, to be quite honest with you. I've never seen her tumbling look so like light in a sense. She was on her feet, she was setting, she was just going really, really well. And then this was Abby's first solo pass that she had. The first meet we gave Alexis and Neva their solos. So this week we did switch up 2 solos. And main reason for that was just to up the difficulty. Abby's pass, she has a 9.8 start value because we have 2 whips going to a full and a half. And her tumbling technique is like almost too proper in a sense. So the whips, we kind of have to tell her, be a little bit more loose. Like, don't think of it as you would like a gymnastics mindset. So kind of getting her out of that comfort zone. It was fun to watch her grow into that and like do that. And on game day, she felt that the whips didn't feel right, so she didn't feel comfortable doing her full and a half, which was okay. She knew her body, she knew what was best to do, and that's okay. Definitely not mad at her. I'd rather her be safe and no injuries occur. And then Maya, her full and a half has been so consistent. We wanted to give her the solo for open pass, and she did a phenomenal job. She lifted, she set, she took one controlled step, and it was beautiful. Like, almost textbook perfect. So I was really proud to give her that solo pass because I know she's been working hard for it as well.
And so that's an event where you said that, you can be almost too proper in your technique. Is it where, you kind of tell your athletes to, put in a little bit of style here and there or be a little bit flashy? Obviously not to an extent where it would hurt them, both the score or physically, obviously. But, they can have a little bit more freedom as opposed to, a pyramid where it's very much not static, but you know exactly what you have to do and get it right every step of the way.
Yeah, and like gymnastics, whenever you are doing your tumbling, judges are looking for these specific things, and the whip passes that we have our girls train, they're not something that you typically see in gymnastics, so them learning that is something new. And they kind of don't know the exact like way to arch and snap for the whip. So that's something that I have to get them like, okay, this is what it's supposed to be. You don't have to be so super tight and stiff. We want a little bit of a flow and a little bit of just a more fluid movement, so to say, versus being so up and down and whatnot. So that's where we have to get Abby a little bit out of her comfort zone.
Absolutely. And certainly with any athlete, like we just mentioned, is that, they all are kind of out of a comfort zone in terms of doing stuff that they might not have been accustomed to seeing or maybe not expecting coming in.
Yes.
And telling them like, hey, we think you could be good. And then they, in this meet, they come up and they perform well. So this week coming up, it's really busy for you guys, and it starts tonight. You're traveling out to Buckhead in West Virginia, and then West Virginia Wesleyan. Then you're back home on Wednesday against West Liberty, and then Saturday you have your first tri-meet of the year, and it's going to be Fairmont State, who last won the MEC championships, and they've been a solid program in this conference for a number of years now, as well as Davis and Elkins. So what's the plan for you guys to not get the athletes like too tired or too mentally fatigued with, essentially, 3 meets coming up against 4 different teams, where they can focus on just themselves and taking care of themselves and not worrying too much about, 3 meets in 6 days?
Yeah. We took yesterday, we did a practice, we got our team event together, so we're excited for that. And it's more of just everything that we've done from this past meet will pretty much almost stay. We might look at upgrading a few things for Wednesday and then making a few upgrades definitely for Saturday. But I'm not changing a whole lot on them. I want them to stay with what we got. We've scored really well with it, and I think we can only make it even more clean and get closer to our start value. So the biggest thing for them is team event, which is the most mental part of it, and so that's where we need to focus a little bit more, clean things up, and just I want them to have fun with it, but obviously I want it to be safe. But getting to finally compete, that I think that will be an eye opener for them, and I think they're excited to do it. They were like, we need to do it for this meet. Like, we have to have a team event. So I was like, okay, we got to put in the work to get it done. But they have definitely had a 180 in their mental thinking for meets. They really are seeing the bigger picture of getting those wins, and they are feeding off of that, and they're wanting to push and they're wanting to do better. And obviously we're making sure they have recovery time. Ice baths are mandatory this week almost every day, and just giving them that downtime, doing some stretching at practice, and they are at the point where they kind of know their bodies, know what they need to work, how many reps they need to get in. So I'm not going to push them too much on that sense.
Absolutely, and certainly that mental, where, if you had done a team event, it was a very good chance that you could have won in that meet. But it certainly, expectations a little bit tampered due to the fact that their roster size is a little bit limited in what you can do. But want to thank you for taking the time out, come and talk to me on the Bobcast, and certainly a good experience for me to get out and get into the specifics of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Back here on the Bobcast, and we're bringing in women's lacrosse, who had a couple of games this past week, a 16-3 win against Alderson Broadus on Wednesday, and then a high-scoring 21-15 loss against Notre Dame on Saturday. And Coach, we'll start off with the AB game, and certainly a game where you guys kind of came out from the get-go and were really on top of them. How big was it for you guys to get that big win against the Battlers, who themselves are a pretty high-scoring team, but you held them to just 3 goals on that day?
Yeah, I think it was exciting for us to finally play some conference competition, since they didn't get to play any conference teams last year, and really prove ourselves. So I think we saw a lot of really good things, but still obviously need to improve. But it was nice to, for these girls to finally get a big win under their belt. And
so I know you talked last week, and we've, might be a theme over the rest of the season, but you having 2 pretty solid goalkeepers in McKenna Shea and Whitney Crosby. In the AB game, you went from McKenna to Whitney after McKenna had started, and I know you talked with him about kind of deciding in the warm-ups who's going to start that day, but Whitney certainly came out and really was aggressive in terms of coming out of her goal and challenging the attackers on AB. And then McKenna will do the same thing when she comes back in. And certainly some of the leaders in our team in cause turnovers, which you don't really see a whole ton from goalkeepers. So how big is it for them to stay aggressive coming in just their first year in collegiate lacrosse?
I think it's really exciting. We always talk about, we would rather have to reel the girls in instead of having to push them out ourselves. So I think we have to do a little reeling in and maybe adjusting a little bit with the goalies. But it's really nice to see that they're really trying to make an impact, not just in the cage, but out of the cage. So I think it just is going to take a little tweaking, but I'm really happy with the way that they're stepping up.
And so in that game, it was a very balanced offensive performance where you had 3 players with 3 goals apiece, 2 players scored 2, and 3 players also scored a goal each. How important is it for you guys to have that balance, where we talk with some other sports where, it's almost impossible to have just 1 or 2 key scorers, because if they get shut down in a game, then you don't have anyone else to go to, where you guys certainly have at least 5 or 6 players that can turn it on at any moment and get a big goal for you guys.
I think that's really exciting for us. It's exactly like you said, and lacrosse is a game where you can face guard a player and completely take them out of the game. But looking at our stats, who are you going to face guard? I think that's really exciting to know that we have, at any given moment, 7 to 10 kids that we can put on the offensive end, and we know that they can score us a goal. So we're really happy with how balanced the attack is right now.
And so I remember from that AB game, and something certainly that I've seen in your guys' home games this year, in that your defense, and especially Emily Chick and Mackenzie Kramer, the two that I wrote down, and that they have a physicality about them. And now, sometimes, people in our office that or that I talk to that don't know women's lacrosse, and they see men's lacrosse, and they're like, well, the women's, you can't really be physical. And I look at them, I'm like, I mean, you can. Like, you see them with their stick, up, and they're, kind of not pushing off, but they're right there in their face. And certainly those two. But as a whole, your defense are very, I don't want to say aggressive, but they let you know that they're there at all times. And is that something that you've instilled in them to go out and be aggressive on their own? Or is that something that they kind of come naturally and they're like, hey, I want to go get these other girls?
I think they all have that fire of, I want to go get the ball, I want to go pressure, but I think the defenses that we have put in have kind of, let that shine through. We started running a man-to-man with sending, a lot of double teams and really high pressure going for interceptions. And then we switched into a zone, which is also high pressure. You have a backer, so you really are going hard the whole time. And, I think they love that. They like being physical. They like being, I don't think aggressive is a bad word. They like being aggressive. I think it's just trying to get them all on the same page at the same time, which is kind of what we're missing on defense right now.
And so in that game, you did a really good job on it. And certainly you would know from the scouting report in AB's number 2, Bailey Feeden, who had 8 goals in her first game this year. And I think she had 20 goals in 4 games last season. Certainly the danger person for AB, but you really contained her in that game and really limited her. What was the game plan that worked for you guys to control her? Certainly on her runs coming back from defense all the way into attack, where she's so speedy, but you guys, once she got into the offensive zone, basically just shut her down.
We practiced a lot on stopping fast breaks, so I think that definitely helped. But we just tell the girls, like I always say, it doesn't matter who we're playing. If we play Frostburg lacrosse, we'll be successful. And we kind of said that within your matchup, just win your matchup. So if you're on her, she wants to drive. So you have to step up and, not give her the space that she wants and maybe send that double early and we'll be fine. And I think they did a great job with her.
And so, a great win certainly for you guys. And then Saturday against Notre Dame, and you came up and then talked to some of us in the press box about the disappointment in that loss. For certainly a game that you felt you could have won. And really the difference was the slow start in the start of the game, and then also at the start of the second half, where at the start of the game, Notre Dame came out, scored 3 straight, and you needed a timeout almost 4 or 5 minutes into the game, and then got back within 1 at the end of the first half, and then Notre Dame kind of scored a heartbreaker with 40 seconds left to put them back up 2. Second half, they score 4 straight again, and suddenly you're down by 6 right away. What was the message to your team after that game, and also yesterday, if you talked to them at all, of we have to come out better because that's the team that was picked right behind us. That's going to be our most competitive of the season, and looking forward to next season. What's the message after that to let them know, like, hey, we have to come out with basically a fire under our butts?
Yeah, I think they know now. We told them, hosting the conference tournament is now not a guarantee. And that's something we were, really hoping for and banking on. And we just said, you guys have to find your reason why you're here. Because it really felt like, we come out flat and we can't have both sides of the ball, working well at the same time. And that comes down to, we give them all the tools. We give them a scouting report. We've switched up defenses. We've switched up offenses. It comes down to them at a certain point. They're the ones on the field playing. And so we really told them to take this weekend and think about why they're here. And so, we're going to figure out who really wants to be here and who doesn't. And, we're going to ride it out. And hopefully the next time we play Notre Dame, it'll be a very different story.
And so you talked about who wants to be here, and certainly, and you and I also talked about this, but a few players that certainly are going to give their all every game and that really love playing lacrosse here at Frostburg, and Stephanie King and Summer Cavey, who are 2 seniors that certainly have lit up the record books here, and also a first year in Anna Kearney. Steph and Anna both playing in the attack position, and then Summer certainly on the draw control of being so well off in her career, and also contributing offensively. But those three players kind of just give their heart on the field. How big is it for you guys to have players like that, where you just know that you don't have to really say anything to them for them to get motivated and perform well?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think Steph and Summer being seniors, it would have been easy for them to say it's senior year and a brand new coach, like we're just going to ride it out, but they want it. They want it so bad, and I think all of our first years really, have that same mentality. It's just hard when you don't have a full 12 on the field that have that mentality, but we're going to get there. We have to. But I think they really do set a great example, and it's good to know that when the ball is in their stick, if we need something to happen, they're going to make it happen.
And so one thing that I wrote down and that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to ask you, is this sort of, I call it a quote-unquote Division II moment where Notre Dame in the MEC has kind of been the team the past couple years where they kind of know the teams that are in this division. You haven't played an MEC game last year and then coming into this year. Is it sort of that, moment where you go to your team and you're like, hey, this is the standard right now? I know you guys played in the CAC and then there's top teams in that league, but this is a whole new ball game, and you guys, not necessarily that you would take stock in the preseason polls, but you guys were picked to win. This team was right behind you, and they kind of just showed you up on your home turf. Is that just that learning experience where you're like, hey, this is where we want to be at? You got to kick it into gear, and this is where we can be and go beyond that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, I think Notre Dame played a great game. I think they played together. I think, they had a lot of heart. And I still think we're the more talented team. But people always say hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that's exactly what happened. And so if we don't, again, dig deep and find our why and put some heart into what we're doing, we won't win the MEC. But I think if we can do that, the score of that game changes drastically. So it's really just they got to dig down deep and figure out why they're here.
And so this week upcoming, you're away at West Virginia Wesleyan, and then you come back home against Charleston, and another two teams where, certainly you can have all the scouting reports that you could have, but it's a difference where you haven't seen them play hands on deck in person. So how is it going to be preparing for two of these teams in the conference, where now with the loss against Notre Dame, where they become essentially must-wins for you guys?
I mean, we have already, myself and Coach Summer have talked, and we're changing things up this week. We're going to stat practice. We're going to, keep score, all of these things to really show the girls, like, every moment counts, every play counts. And, we just talked with one of our captains, and they said, even if we're in a game where we're winning by 10 or 12 or whatever, we make a mistake, get on us, because that's going to be the difference in games like Notre Dame. So I think a lot of them have changed their attitude, and we're changing the way we do things, and hopefully, it works.
Absolutely. And coming in first-year head coach and certainly bringing a new mentality and a way of life for this team where they haven't had that consistency in their coaching for a while. So it certainly can only be for the better for them. But I want to thank you for taking the time out of your morning to come and talk to us on the Bobcast after letting loose a little bit of your frustrations from Saturday and being able to come in and talk today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Back on the Bobcast here with head tennis coach Jeff Splinter. And Coach, you finally got your first wins of the season this past weekend. Your women's team won at Davis and Elkins on Friday afternoon, and then your men came right back the next day and won at West Virginia State. How important is it for you to finally get these teams their wins, and they can kind of see they've been playing well all season, but now they finally can get wins and finally get that confidence to know, hey, we are good enough to compete with these teams?
Absolutely. For the women, it was their first Mountain East Conference victory, so that was a big boost of confidence. For our men, it was a little bit more where it was our first Division II victory as the program, so and first Mountain East victory. So both teams were playing exceptionally well on Friday and looked great. I was really happy that the women were able to find a way to win against Davis and Elkins. we had an early lead in Davis and Elkins, and then they took it back, and then we finished the last 2 matches with a win and with a win. So we kind of came back from behind there. So, heart throbbing. It was crazy. And then the men on Saturday, it's funny because we do play really well, and then Saturday I felt like the men did not play exceptionally well. But we found a way to win. We're building championship culture, and sometimes you're not going to have your best, and you got to find a way. And the guys really found a way on Saturday.
And certainly, that's something that people can think about in team sports. Where if you're in like a soccer game and you play really well, but you make a mistake for 20 seconds, then you lose the game. Whereas in tennis, you can not play exceptionally well for a good portion of many sets, but you can still win those sets based on your performance. So we'll start off with the women's side from Davis and Elkins, and you won your first double points of the season, starting off with Maddie Toothman and Charisse Jenkins getting their win, and then Rabi Ladon and Betsy Hickson winning their doubles match. So how important, obviously in the final results, it was really big for you guys to get that doubles point.
Huge.
But what was it for the pairs that were playing to get their wins on that day and really help the team to where they can be motivated for their singles matches?
Yeah, no, I think it's exceptionally important, and they really brought up the one doubles pair of Shay and Manny, who didn't play bad at all. They just ran into some really good players, and you could see the confidence building in doubles, and securing that doubles point really meant a lot in terms of taking that confidence and what we're doing and carrying it over into singles, a couple minutes later. So, I thought Robbie and Betsy came out on fire and they won their match in probably 10 minutes. Super quick. They just took care of business. They got out there. We were the better team, and they proved it quickly. That's something we talk a lot about in practice is, when we're playing matches that we think we can win, we got to go out there and prove it. So, they took care of business, and then, Charisse and Maddie were in a close one early, and then they quickly separated themselves later in the set. So, really, really impressive doubles performance from all 3 pairs, really.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the team of Shay and Manny, and they only lost 6-4, which certainly in tennis that's a closer match than it may seem based on those 2 sets. So Betsy also won her singles match later, and then like you mentioned, it was up to Shay Prywazerski and Jen Dieterle to pick up their singles win for you guys just to win. If either of them had lost, you wouldn't have had hope. Shay winning 6-2, 6-1, and then Jen making you sweat it out a bit for that 6-1, 7-5 victory. Obviously, Shay's been one of the most consistent performers in this program for a couple years now, and Jen has really stepped up this year, as you've mentioned previously on the Bobcast. But talking about Jen's win, that 7-5, I guess she doesn't entirely care about your heart health there in terms of making you wait that one out. But what was it like to kind of, coach her from the sideline and just see her pick up that huge, long final set to win the match for you guys, and also to get her win?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was actually her first career win. So, who could ask for something better? First career win, a clinching point, first Mountain East Conference victory. Like, she had no idea any of this was riding on the line. She did a great job of just staying focused on her match and not paying attention to everything around her. But we talk a lot about the second set and being prepared, and we know our opponent is going to bring more energy and more effort because they lost that first set. So, it's withstanding that and, fighting through that. And she did a great job of just playing 1 point at a time, setting herself up. She was actually behind 5-4 in the set and then won the last 3 games. So, you talk about a clutch performer, Jen definitely typified that this weekend.
And certainly a mental aspect, which goes often unnoticed in sports, in that you have to be mentally strong as well as your physical prowess and able to compete well. And so we move on to the men's side, and you lose the doubles point in that, but Mason Hordube and Tim Goldring won theirs pretty well in a 6-1 victory, and they both also picked up their singles wins in a 6-3, 4-6, 6-0 for Mason and a bit of a marathon for him, and then Tim with a 6-1, 6-2 victory. What is it about their partnership in doubles? And like I said, speaking on the women, of giving them the confidence to then go into their singles matches and perform well?
Yeah, Mason is the heartbeat, the Energizer Bunny of the team. He's Mr. Hustle, self-proclaimed. So he always brings a ton of energy. And against West Virginia State, the bus, we got there maybe 15 minutes later than we wanted to. So the guys had to warm up quickly and get going. And, we didn't look that great in warm-ups, but as soon as the match hit, that's when the energy started pouring out of Mason. So, he waited to the last minute to get going, but once he gets going and gets firing, and he's screaming and yelling, for positive reasons, and that really pumps up the rest of the team. So Tim and Mason were able to get the win. There are steady second doubles. They always perform well. Against Davis and Elkins, they had a very close 6-4 loss in doubles, which is a very good team. And, we're just doing what we need to well. And that's, holding serve, putting points away at the net. And, they carried that over into Saturday's performance and just kept cruising. Tim in singles looked outstanding. Again, we talk about with Jen and, with Shay, it's kind of along the same lines where he knew he was in a winnable match and he didn't mess around. He didn't play long points with the guy. He was playing his brand of tennis and stuck to that the entire 2 sets. Mason playing in a third set, he was the clinching point once again. We were tied at 3-3 and they were going into a third set and Mason was starting to cramp a little bit. So, he really took care of business. He knew he couldn't be on the court much longer, so we just told him to give everything he had these next couple of games, and he really started to find his stride that third set, and the guy just couldn't hold to Mason's level of performance there.
Absolutely, and cramping certainly a factor there. And when you're playing a 3-set match and in any tennis match, it's going to be hard on the legs, especially. And so you call Mason Mr. Energizer Bunny, and that makes me think Jeff Goldring would be Mr. Consistent if we're coming up with nicknames, and that he's been here this now his 4th year as a senior, and he's just always performed whenever he's asked to. He won his match 6-4, 6-2. Is it something where it's his experience perhaps that allows him to pick up those victories where he kind of knows what's expected of him and what he expects of himself, where he can pull out these victories for your team and help you to get points like this that contribute to wins?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a little bit of a disappointing start from Jeff in doubles, Jeff in Origin, but he didn't let that affect him. He got off to a relatively slow start in singles. He was down early, and this is a guy he's played about a month ago at the Charleston Invite, so he knew the type of game he was playing against. He beat him pretty easily in the Charleston Invite. But like I said, it's the days where we don't have our best that we find what we're made of. And, Jeff is that consistent player. He's Mr. Dependable. He's someone that exactly what you're going to get point in and point out. And once he started to find his energy and find his groove, that second set was a lot easier because that late first set, he went on a charge and just won a few games straight. You can hear it in his voice, and he's giving out tons of energy. Origin is feeding off of that. Mason, they're both right next to him. They're both feeding off of Jeff. And he's someone that we look forward to seeing good results from point in, point out. And with his experience at one singles last year, he got a great idea of the type of tennis he can play. And now that he's playing 2, things are a little bit easier for him.
And so you talked a couple times about Origin Greer, who has played in that number 1 spot for the singles for you guys and also has formed a partnership with Jeff in the doubles. He finally clinched the win. He's played well in almost every single match he's played this year. Excuse me. But he finally got a good win and a 6-3, 7-5 win for you guys. And you talk about Jeff, where you kind of know what you're going to get. We're coming into this year, Origin being a first year, obviously you would know from recruiting him, but from us, watching from afar, we wouldn't know how he would do. And he's performed arguably one of the top on the team.
Yeah, we ask a lot of Origin. He obviously plays at one singles, so with him and Manny, it's all about, that consistency, that making sure we're being competitive in every match. We're asking them to go up against their best player, and he's really risen to the challenge. As a freshman, it's not easy to go out there and play the best player on other teams who might be seniors and juniors and upperclassmen who have, had that college experience, but he doesn't let that stop him. He loves the challenge. He embraces it. So he got off to a great start that first set. He was up 5-1, I think, in the first set. Got a little nervous towards the end of the first set, but he's playing a very consistent, a very good player in West Virginia State with Ryan. So we knew there was going to be some pushback. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. And that second set, he again, kind of with Jen, it was very similar to where they were back and forth the entire set, and then right at the end of the set, he played his best tennis to find a way to win that match.
And so you guys coming up now, you're back at home. April 6th, your next match against Salem, and it's a bit of a home streak for you guys where you get a couple games here at your home court. So don't have to worry about showing up 15 minutes late and getting not enough practice time in. But certainly, hopefully one of us or a couple of us from Athletic Communications will be around to finally see you guys play. We've been very busy these past couple of weeks with other sports going on, but we'll be excited to see you guys in match play and hopefully get you some nice pictures of all the players to use on social media. And we thank you for taking time out of your morning here to come talk to us on the Bobcast, and congratulations on both your wins this year.
All right, thank you. Go Bobcats.
Back here on the Bobcast, and we're talking with men's soccer head coach Keith Byrnes. 3-0 loss, coach, for your team at Notre Dame on Sunday afternoon, and it was an overnight trip for you guys to avoid having to take that 4-hour trip in the morning. Certainly a game where, the yellow cards and the red cards that ended up happening certainly affected the outcome. But, before those cards happened, what was your takeaway from how your team performed in that, first about, 3/5 of the game?
Notre Dame is a good team. Obviously, they finished second last year, and they were picked to finish second this year. So it was going to take, some of our best soccer to compete with them or try to get a point from them. And we gave up the goal in the first half. I think the shots were 4-1 in the half. I think it was a midfield battle going back and forth. They were never that dangerous other than the goal we gave up. I think Joel had one other really good save maybe. We didn't do a lot offensively, I didn't think. I thought we were lacking possession in the attacking third. And then in the second half, I thought we were starting to compete. And that was kind of the trend we had last year. We had better second halves against them once we made some adjustments. And I thought we were in a position to compete and, keep it at a 1-0 game or hopefully get that goal to tie it. And then, unfortunately, the double yellow cards kind of bit us in the butt there.
Yeah, and certainly a game, and especially the first half, like you mentioned, it was very few chances for either side. It was pretty even throughout and kind of a scrappy affair where there's a lot of fouls on both sides, but not a lot of even scoring chances, and Notre Dame was able to take their one. But it was just a tough game for either side to really get shots away and get good looks on goal. Was that a result of kind of just the nature of the game where it's kind of feisty and scrappy in all areas, or is it just both defenses played well and limited the chances, or a bit of a combination of both?
I guess both. I thought we knew what to expect. We had a pretty good scout on how they were going to attack, and I thought we negated that. I didn't think we particularly played that well defensively necessarily. We were making some errors back there, and I thought we could have been a little bit cleaner on the ball and a little bit tougher defending. But because we knew kind of what they were trying to do, I think we were able to negate it. And for them, we just didn't get the ball to our guys in enough dangerous positions to really put them under pressure. And I thought it was going back and forth. And it was, it's always pretty scrappy with those guys. You just try to match the intensity. And sometimes you can take that too far. And I think that's, again, sort of what happened to us there in the second half.
And so you talked a little bit about Joel Assault. He made a couple of really nice saves. He made 7 on the day, which really doesn't tell the full story of his day considering it was a 3-0 loss, but certainly one of the standout performances. And we talk about him, either whenever you have a shutout or whenever he makes some really nice saves, and that he just brings a consistency in that you know what you're going to get out of him, and he's not going to make very many mistakes in a season, and he can sort of save the defense in a way when, like you said, they don't play their best games, but he can certainly command them from the back and get them to play better maybe than what they're capable of on any given day.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of our goals given up, if you look back, I mean, it's hard to say they're goalkeeper errors. I mean, it's usually, we broke down somewhere in front and kind of left him hanging to dry. So he did. He kept us in it with the one big save in the first half that he came out for when we had a giveaway, and then as he was, we were succeeding to pressure. In the second half, he had to make a couple good saves where they were just getting numbers up on us.
And so I want to bring up kind of the forward players where you said you weren't exactly able to get the ball up into good positions and get it to the right players to get those chances. But I wanted to bring up the difference that you have in Malik Shadid and Vaughn Phillips, who both have played at center forward this year, but they're very different players in their style, where Vaughn is very much a turn and burn type player where he'll get in behind the defense and try to create something off the break. And Malik is a much bigger body where he can hold up play and try to get other players involved. Is that something where you can use that to your advantage depending on the opponents, where, if they're pressing you a lot, you can use Vaughn in behind, where if you're in possession more against any given opponent, you can put in Malik and he can hold up the play and link guys up more?
I mean, we'd like to be able to do things like that if they're playing well. I mean, Malik has to learn to play to his strengths, which is his size and being more back to goal. And Vaughn's strength should be, getting him behind and exploiting open spaces. Both of them need to be a little bit sharper with their receiving in their first touch to keep possession and not put themselves under pressure instantly. But we haven't had a lot of options. It was Tamino's first game back from his injury, and then Vaughn's still kind of carrying some slight injuries, and we don't have a lot of depth up there, so sometimes we use it out of necessity based on who's healthy and who deserves the minutes. But yeah, I mean, Tamino and Vaughn are similar. Malik's a different style forward, so it should allow us to do have a different way to get the ball into the attack, whether it's playing through Malik for layoffs or playing those guys into space and using their speed.
And it's certainly this year, and you just sort of mentioned it, where because of injuries and other some extenuating circumstances where you kind of have to put guys in where, you don't necessarily always have your strongest lineup, and it's sort of a plug and play with some guys that may be out of position or haven't gotten the experience necessary. Is that something that you can kind of turn into a positive where when you look forward into the fall where you say, hey, you guys have played in these different positions now, we're expecting a bit more of you to be able to be versatile and play where you might not be comfortable, but where we think you can succeed?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't played too many guys out of position. It's just lack of depth in those positions where we're only rotating one sub in and then just trying to get everybody in and out when they need a break, just because of the depth right now for the spring. But the positive is they're getting experience. I mean, we got probably, 10 new guys out there, so they're getting game minutes now. And as much as part of us says that we're playing for a conference championship, part of it's looking at as this is a spring season, we're preparing for the fall. So, yeah, we got to just keep grinding away. I mean, we're still looking to put ourselves in a position to compete for a playoff spot. That's an uphill battle, but until we're mathematically eliminated, we're going to go for it. So, these guys got to be ready to go every week, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. But hopefully we're learning. If we're not learning from these experiences, then it hasn't been that productive. But if we can, take something from these losses and, hopefully prevent it from happening in the future, whether it's how do you play on a yellow card so you don't get a second and not put the team down, or we had someone missed a weightlifting session and we had to bench him for the game, and we don't have a lot of depth. Those things can kind of hurt you. So it's a learning experience, but yeah, some of these younger guys, some of the new guys, we're learning to play together, and ideally by the fall when we plug in, a handful of newer players, but at least we'll have a core that have kind of been through it and then can hopefully show the other guys the ropes, and the adjustment shouldn't be as steep as it may seem right now.
And so you talked a little bit about the tough schedule, and like you said, not getting any easier. On Friday, you're back here at Bobcat Stadium taking on the number 15th ranked team in Division II in Davis and Elkins. What's your message to your team where you played against Charleston first game of the year, number 1 team in Division II right now, an 8-0 loss, and now it's another ranked team coming up where you want to be competitive in that game, but it's still kind of seeing the measuring stick in this level at Division II where you're like, hey, this is where we want to be, and this is the standard that we want to get to.
We know what they're capable of. They've had some good results in the conference. They look a little stronger on paper than they were last year. So, yeah, it's going to take, we have to put 90 minutes together. We can't have mental lapses or physical lapses. It's got to be a complete game. We're not good enough to make mistakes and get by. We've got to just be solid in all phases of the game, throughout the game, be efficient, take advantage of missed opportunities on the other team's end, and just limit our mistakes in the back. But it gives you a little bit of a measuring stick, or just a chance to we're usually that team that plays up to the opponent and sometimes drops down to the opponent, which is not what you want to do, but at least we should bring out the best if we know we're playing a nationally ranked team and have a chance to actually, prove something to ourselves that, hey, we are capable of competing at this level still.
And so we wish you the best of luck in that game. And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your morning here to come and talk to us on the Bobcast.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Back here on the Bobcast, bringing in women's soccer with head coach Brian Parker. Coach, your team with a pretty impressive 1-0 victory over Notre Dame on Friday night in Bobcat Stadium. And we talked a little bit after about your game just out here in the hallway of our athletic department it was a very balanced game between your two teams where you play very similar styles. I just wanted to talk about how big it is for you guys, where earlier in the season it was a similar game against West Virginia Wesleyan, where it was a 1-0 victory and both teams were really evenly matched, and the result could have gone either way.
That is correct. It was a good game and a pretty even game, and they have athletes, and I think they're a bit better than last year. Than I think the games we played in 19, and certainly in terms of the number of quality players and their willingness to put the ball on the floor and really try to knock it around. And we had matchup problems in areas. They obviously went after our right side big time, and Jamie DiTullo did a nice job with that girl. Probably got run at 20 times in the game. So there were, there wasn't a lot of X's and O's. I think both teams were kind of similar, trying to do a lot of the same things, but they certainly executed and outperformed us for stretches in the match. And I think the story of the game really is that we just defended well enough to hang in there and let that one special thing happen for us, and we're fortunate that it did.
And so you brought up Jamie DiTullo, and I want to talk about your wide backs first, where Notre Dame had a couple of pretty quick wingers in their number 21, their number 4, going up against Jamie and also Mina Del Borello, where also in this game it was one of the first games, and I think it happened at Wheeling too, where you used a back 4 for the whole game, and it was the same players throughout. And Jamie and Mina especially, where Notre Dame clearly was trying to go down the wings in terms of their defending. And I know that Notre Dame's number 21 was looking to get at Jamie, but Jamie defended pretty well the whole game with not allowing their winger into space to come into the middle and try to force her down the line.
Well, I think if you ask those girls, if they were sitting here and you would ask them directly, I think that they are up to the challenge. I think a lot of players in the game and in a lot of team sports are pretty happy to anticipate what was happening. We had the scouting and we kind of knew them. We watched some of their films and certainly we knew what to expect, and it happened, and they kind of went after them and rise to the challenge. Do your best to stay goal side. And I think in one-on-one matchups, this is a pretty simple philosophy, is to make them beat you. Just play good, honest defense, and obviously you can do some things to sort of bait the move and change the timing of the move, but you're waiting for them to show you something and then tackle that something, instead of having to force the issue, the idea of just kind of delaying or containing or whatever coaching word you want to use. And I think they both did a really good job of that. Mina, I think both of them are players, like a lot of players, they kind of get into a zone, a competitive zone, and they know that they're challenged, and they know the focus level has to be really high. And I think especially in the second half, you could see Mina just kind of thriving in that kind of physical, combative situation she was in, and she did really well. The obviously the challenge is to manage that competitive zone as a defender and also perform with the ball, because we're asking them to do that too. So you have to kind of be able to do both things. I mean, it's a silly analogy, but sometimes I like to say you got to win balls like a Sherman tank, but then pass like a Ferrari, And so trying to be able to change gears like that is not always easy, but they certainly held their own.
Yeah, it was certainly a game that was a little bit scrappy in a way, in terms of no one could really get the ball down and just pass around the other team. It was very much play a ball forward, it would get deflected. There's a third ball that you have to go and try and win. And one player that I thought did a good job of that, and keeping on defenders, is Abby Dennis, who is not afraid of any challenge. She'll put her head in, she'll put her foot in, she'll put almost any part of her body in if it means winning the ball. And another thing that she did really well was to bring the ball out of defense and then dribble up the field, which, and I talked with Mina yesterday, who's working for us at lacrosse, where she said that she's really improved that aspect of her game as the season has gone on, in terms of being able to be an outlet when the pass isn't on, that she can take the ball up the field with confidence and keep possession for you guys.
Yeah, so obviously, the style question is funny. Some people will ask me about how we like to play. And of course, I will say we love to use the width and spread it around and play to feet and have a good speed of play. But so do our opponents, So when we play an opponent who is athletic and trying to do what we're doing, and maybe sometimes doing it better, it looks like a track meet. And so I think there were certainly moments of, I don't want to say panic, but when we were really hurried by their pressure and just didn't play with the quality we would like. So again, learning how to manage that and calm down. And obviously we talk about just taking pictures of the game all the time, knowing what the pressure is, knowing what the best pass is, and just trying to kind of, pretty almost instantaneously kind of settle your mind and be, really think about what you're trying to accomplish. So we have enough mature players that do that. And Abby's really good at that. She can obviously get into a one-on-one battle and really will thrive in those challenges when mostly center forwards are sort of backing into her. But when she wins the ball, she loves to spring forward and take space. The interesting thing about the system we play, most teams are in some kind of 4-3-3, is if the center mids aren't on, they're defended, or maybe she's just puts the ball out in front of them and has a chance to run into their final third. Why not do it? I think I think she's constantly making us a little nervous about those mazy runs and moments forward. But what I tell her all the time is I don't ever mind any of our backs who want to run and get forward. I think it's awesome. You just got to end it with something really positive, because if you lose the ball and tackle it, guess what you got to do? You got to put a 50-yard run in now without the ball. So if you don't want to have to be sprinting back all the time and scrambling, make sure you end with a good pass, or even a through ball that is maybe a little risky but is a forward pass. So she's gotten pretty good about timing those releases and kind of not getting herself in trouble with it, and I think she was good at that, certainly Friday.
So we've talked about the defenders a lot, and I wanted to bring up your forwards and all of them, really, in that you have a lot of depth in that area where you can sub off your front three and put on a front three that's going to do the exact same job and almost as well, if not better, than the starters, where you have, starting out in that game, it was Audra Curtin, it was Tony Fiacco-Meiser and Lexi Pate across that front line, and then you can bring in Marley Copes and Ashley Chu and Charlotte Davis in right behind them. So how big is it for you guys where, scoring hasn't quite been the forte this year in terms of finishing, but in terms of the effort and the energy, there's no drop-off whatsoever when you bring in those substitutes?
So, of course, it is a luxury to have some reserve players, a group of players, frankly, that can share those minutes and maintain our quality, certainly our energy. And it is about a little bit about who's in form and who's playing well, and of course that affects their minutes. So some of that is just dictated, of course, by the opponents and the matchups, and maybe one of those three players who doesn't start, we can get something out of the matchup that we maybe didn't see from the starter. So it has evolved just recently into sort of a platoon kind of thing where we do like to use all three of those subs, but being able to spell those starters and give them a little break, going into halftime, and then the rules allow us to have that sort of mid-half break in the second half. It just makes us a better team, obviously, and any of those players can play more minutes if they need to. Chu got off a great shot to end the first half that was pretty amazingly saved. It was a good strike. So she's a super athlete. All three of them are. And so, it's a luxury we have, and it makes the competition is great. But obviously, we always tell players, if you don't start the game, you get your 10 or 15 minutes. You got to turn that into 20, into 30, into a start. And I think they understand that, and they're doing great.
And that's certainly something that Leela Clark, who I also wanted to bring up, has done, where she started this game, but it was an attacking mid rather than in one of the forward places where she's played for a good portion of the season. And her and Tony Fiacco-Miser, both of them kind of can interchange with each other. One of them can play as a center forward, the other can go in attacking mid, and vice versa. And both of them, played I wrote down 3 adjectives, and feisty, scrappy, and aggressive to an extent, on the aggressiveness at least, where they're not afraid of putting their bodies on the line and winning the ball high up the field for you guys. And Tony especially made a couple of sliding challenges where you might see her from the outside and say, well, she's pretty short, she's pretty small, but she certainly will throw her body around and certainly not afraid of a tackle. And then on the other side, on the athleticism, she makes a 30, 40-yard run to go and win the penalty for you guys that ended up winning you the game.
Yeah, so those girls are really elite athletes, right? They're pretty amazing, really. Even though they're not 5'10", and maybe don't look as dominating or as intimidating as others might. But it is kind of funny how I think a lot of coaches would say, hey, I'll take a team full of small, speedy, quick players and win lots of games with them. But that is difficult because you have a lot of matchups. You got to win high balls, right? There's lots of things that size and strength gives you in any competitive sport, certainly in soccer. But there's no doubt that they are feisty. They're loaded with fast twitch. They have energy. I think Leela is just now coming into sort of full fitness where she can give us 90 minutes. And I don't know if anyone covered more mileage maybe than that kid did, in the 90 minutes. And kind of a warrior mentality, but she's also super skillful. She has a crazy first touch. Like, you can throw almost any ball you want into her body, and she will somehow keep it in playable distance and do something creative with it. She got some instincts too that she came to over time. The idea how she has a very nice habit of kind of cutting that first touch away from pressure, even if it's a big negative touch, to then play a forward pass, which is really kind of an advanced thing. And so I was watching her carefully in the game, and she doesn't lose the ball right away. She loses it trying things, but she doesn't lose it right away. And Tony is just thinking and moving at a really high level. And so we try to play her wide. We try to get a matchup for her that's favorable, but just playing her in the center channel and let her buzz around defensively, of course, and also making runs is probably where she's going to spend a lot of time.
Absolutely. And so coming up this week, Friday, you have a big game on the road at West Virginia Wesleyan, a team that you beat 1-0 back at home here at Bobcat Stadium earlier this year, and certainly a game with Central Division standings on the line and a big matchup for you guys. What's your message to the players coming off of that first win, where it was a really tough game, and you guys were able to come away with the victory of going now on the road to their place, where certainly they're going to be motivated to get a result against you guys after you beat them here?
You want to give my speech this week to the team? I think that was pretty good. So obviously there's a combination, right? You gain a confidence from the first result, and you know that you can knock a ball around and you're going to get chances to score, and that there's not going to be any outclassing or anything. We're going to be obviously competitive and be able to do some things. But yeah, there's a sort of a grudge match. It's kind of the second time you play these teams. What is the advantage? Is it to have lost a close game and maybe that more motivates the losing team? I don't think so. I think in a lot of ways you just have to realize it's big. It's a big game because it's our next game. We have to play all three of these teams in our group again. So the first one isn't going to change the outcome of our season. The second or third one could. So, this would be, really put us in a good place if we get a result. But I think our focus is always just on the performance, and just trying to raise our game. If we're just a little better in some ways than we were against Notre Dame, we'll be fine, and that's our focus for the week.
Absolutely. Well, anytime you need a motivational speaker, you know where my office is, and I'll come down and give the players a rousing up.
I think you nailed it.
thank you for taking the time out of your morning here, come and talk to us on the Bobcast, and it's always a great time to talk about soccer here.
I appreciate it. Thanks.